Hello everyone, welcome to the first game in the 1v1 Swiss Casuals Tournament. This game features Fredward and Zorbaz. I'm Fanatic. Joining me today is Terror Incognita. This map was one that DT personally designed, but the resources are random. So what do you think about it, Terror?
Yeah, very interesting, isn't it? We've got a big patch of iron here, so scientist is fairly promising, robot as well, but the electronics price so high, going to make it difficult for anyone to go robot. It's a real shame there isn't a scavenger available. Or
a nomad. It's a shame this elite's here because founding elite is an instant death wish in 1v1.
Yeah, I mean, it basically means there's only 3 HQs for them to choose from.
We assume that Fredward and Zorbaz don't have a death wish. Well, maybe...
Oh, never mind.
Maybe I spoke too soon.
It's an interesting choice, isn't it? I'm not sure I agree with either. I think the robot with the electronic situation is going to be a very difficult one for Fredward to deal with. Zorbaz with that elite as well. That is really going to be interesting. And the immediately problematic thing about Zorbaz has found is the silicon situation. Doesn't really have very much silicon. It's quite expensive, and his steel is also going to be slow. So Fredward with the early lead, but again, these early claims, that carbon quarry and the steel mill, not sure about that.
Yeah, so what we do have is two players that are better at FFAs playing in a 1v1 situation. Fredward actually came in second place in the new players FFA tournament. He did the first HQ2, however, so we might be seeing that a little bit of that going on. I think Fredward is planning on power to spike quickly, which is why he went for that carbon quarry. And then he's going to, and you can see it's already going up very rapidly, 59, 60, etc. So I'm assuming he's planning for early windmills.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not sure I like it very much. I mean, it's just not that high right now. It's going to be a while before that gets to the point where it's going to make Fredward a serious amount of money. I think he might have just been better off putting some steel mills down instead of that. I'm less concerned for Fredward now that he's got those steel mills up, though. It's going to be much less problematic for him to get to the upgrades than it is for Zorbaz to get to his upgrade. Zorbaz, again, just working on that one single low silicon tile. Silicon's quite expensive. It's going to take a while for all of that to come in. He's also auto-selling iron at $3, which I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah, never auto-sell iron at $3. Never auto-sell anything at $3. And in a 1v1, you should be buying into stuff when it's that low, simply because the price is so volatile.
Yep.
Now, one thing about Fredward is this is an FFA move, blobbing your resources like this. If Fredward wasn't playing against an elite that needed every single cent to upgrade, this should have been hit with an EMP already.
I think it might be hit with an EMP, or probably it should be hit with an EMP as well. Zorbaz, though, instead getting into his upgrade resources and trying just to buy as much as he can. We've got the unhelpful surplus on the aluminium for him as well. So he is going to be upgrading first, and he does hit that trigger and gets to HQ3. Does have a little bit of debt, and again, the problem with Elite, as always with Elites, you don't have the claims to do everything that you need to do at this part of the game, so he needs to go into power, he might need to go into life support as well, and of course that's without even thinking about the advanced buildings that the Elites are so good at.
Right, now it is surprising that Zorbaz was able to make it to the upgrade ahead of Fredward. Fredward still needs another 8.2k in electronics, those 219 electronics proving to be quite difficult. Fredward is auto-selling steel, which is something Zorbaz is going to be happy with. It's the only thing Fredward's making money at the moment, but once the second wind turbine goes up, that debt's going to start to decrease, and should decrease decently in a decent rapid fashion. Only 10k debt, so soon should be making some bit of power money. We'll see how much power crashes. Zorbaz is using a lot of steel mills, so that should help keep the power price up.
Yeah, and the issue with Zorbaz is that he doesn't really have a way to get into power in the short term. He's got that geotherm claim, but it's going to be a while before he can put that down. As I say that, he does put it down, but that cost him a lot to do that. It cost him all of his steel and then some. So Fredward, for a while, I think, is going to be able to have that power market almost to himself. And of course, there's always the black market. The fact that nobody's used the black market so far, by the way, is, I think, a big mistake for both players. They have had the money to do it.
Yes, well, it is the casuals 1v1 tournament, so we do have a bunch of players on the newer side, so especially in this game. So that's to be expected. Offensive black market items are worth their weight in gold in a 1v1 game because they benefit you and hurt your opposing player, versus in an FFA, they benefit you, two other guys, and hurt the person you threw it on.
Yep, absolutely. It's a zero-sum game in an FFA. If you hurt your opponent, you are helped by that amount. Or sorry, in a 1v1, not an FFA.
Zorbaz going for a very greedy second geotherm before they had the black market cooldown to defend it. Fredward blows it up.
Yep, Zorbaz saying that 11 seconds he had the goon, but that was 11 seconds too late. And of course, Fredward knew exactly how many goons had been purchased by Zorbaz, and that number was only 1. So he basically knew where it was. It was on the other geotherm, and he couldn't defend the second geotherm. Fredward taking the lead, though. He's having a little bit of difficulty upgrading, and he's turned all of his buildings off, which I'm not sure I agree with. I think he does need that steel, regardless of whether it's profitable, at least on the tooltip. So I think I'd probably turn those back on if I were him. He is making very good money from this food, though.
Yeah, I was talking with Fredward the other day when Fredward was streaming, and I think Fredward plays with the turn all show net revenue, which means those buildings might be showing negative to him because of the power cost.
Yeah.
Versus they show positive to us who don't have that turned on. And I think, personally, I think it's much better to play with it off. You can subtract the power cost in your head.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends. It just depends how you choose to do it. I, for example, play with it on, but then I know like what the power price is. It very helpfully says it in the corner, so I can sort of work that out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the debt cost to Fredward isn't real money at this point, although it actually is, because he's making power money at this point. But in any case, the steel price, like the issue with the being turned off, is that he doesn't have any steel, and he will need the steel to upgrade. So in actuality, the steel price is higher than it is because he needs so much of it to upgrade.
Right, it's a lot higher, and you can just see it as he rotated out of those buildings jump up just a little bit there. So I would say that the steel income for the upgrade is worth far more than the power that Fredward's gaining by keeping those steel mills off. Just because we know that there's going to be a spike when Fredward upgrades. Now, we've been talking about Fredward. Zorbaz right now in trouble. C debt already, HQ3, only sold 5, slowdown strikes on his power production and steel mills just to make that upgrade as hard as possible and as little power money as possible. So Zorbaz, with the power from these 2 geothermal plants, isn't even covering his life support costs as his debt increases.
Just elite things. Hashtag just elite things. Yeah, you don't have claims to do what you need to do. This is why elites aren't very good, I'm afraid. You just don't have the claims. He's got, what, 10? Something like that? 10 claims, maybe? On the map right now. None on the black market. So he needs to cover power, he needs to cover life support, he needs to cover his silicon, he needs to cover his steel, and he just can't do all of that. And he's even got a claim into the aluminum as well, which I think A is a mistake, but B reduces the number of claims that he needs, or that he has to deal with his other problems by 1, and he didn't have enough in the first place, so he certainly doesn't have enough now.
I'm assuming he went into the aluminum because the 2 geotherms cost 80 aluminum, which would have been a lot to buy off the market.
Yeah, true. But still, I mean, it's aluminum's $20 right now, and it hasn't really shown signs that it's going to be very high, particularly with a robot in the game.
It's one of the other
I think it's a mistake.
Negatives of the elites. The elites have a upgrade resource that does not replace the construction resource, unlike every other faction.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit awkward, doesn't it? It's not easy for them to get access to that aluminum if it's quite expensive. It's only a problem if it's expensive, but often because there is some amount of demand there from the elite and not much production, it's going to be expensive. Both players at HQ4 though, and Fredward deciding he's going to get into all of this water. There's so much water here, and this is an interesting auction. I'm not actually sure it's worth that much, but this is always one of those things that, particularly with less experienced players, tend to be overvalued. Teleportation is often seen as being OP, although it only goes for 10, which I'm a little bit proud about. That might be a little bit too low, though.
Yeah, it might be a little bit too low. Fredward, like we said, was in the new players tournament, but did come in second place, so definitely on the better side of newer players. Was ranked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was ranked, well, yeah. I think, a legendary in the last season, so that was his stuff. Just might not be. As I'd say that Fredward is letting the elites be in this game too much. Fredward has a cash advantage. Should be like power EMPing. Which, as I say that,
there it is.
But that should have been happening a few souls ago.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think, like, he is ahead. He's very clearly ahead, particularly because of the debt that Zorbaz is in. A huge amount of debt and no real means to power through that or do anything about it, really. But he's going to take a very big debt tick here as well. It's going to be 20% of what he has right now, which is somewhere around $25,000.
Yeah, I'll stick on his Zorbaz perspective so we can see that on stream. The debt tick will come in 1 second at 25,000. So D debt for Zorbaz, no attacking back. That would be an issue if Zorbaz had actually attacked Fredward at all.
Yeah, he's barely used the black market at all. In fact, I don't think he has bought an offensive item on the black market. He's only bought goons.
And that's understandable as an elite, because you just, especially an elite with these like low silicon, you just need so much of that money to get to the upgrades. And now that Fredward's realizing Zorbaz, can't respond, why not kick them while they're down? It's a good strategy.
Yeah. Well, he knows exactly where his goons are as well. He's got the spy on the geotherm. So he knows exactly what's up. There's no real need to hold back with the black market at this point, because you are just keeping Zorbaz in that D level of debt. Zorbaz probably not going to be able to upgrade anytime soon either, has no steel whatsoever, isn't making any food because of the black market, is going into chems now, which are a very, very good market. But again, one that's shared by Fredward, and yeah, he's got 300 in stockpile.
Yeah, so Fredward's paying attention to Zorbaz's base. Those chems should be sold, and they were. So all of a sudden, still making $81 a second, but not too bad. Now, Fredward's going to start a buy into Zorbaz, and the question is, will Zorbaz be able to pull the 8K needed to defend himself? Because Fredward could sell out of their stocks, and should sell out of their stocks, which should give them, I think, just enough money to make this buy.
Yeah, what's he making right now? He's making some food money from that single farm. It might be close, although did he just lose a bunch of his money somehow?
The chems completed, came online.
Ah, yep.
So Fredward will take the game. Game number 1, showing once again, never found elite in a 1v1.
Never found elite anywhere that's not IO, to be honest.
It was a far closer game in terms of HQ levels than I would have expected, just given that we're talking a robot versus an elite. The elite did get to HQ 3 before the robot did, which is surprising. As a robot, you're definitely behind when that happens.
I mean, I think that is true, but I think there's a couple of reasons that Zorbaz was able to keep up in HQ levels that sort of flew a little bit under the radar, that weren't necessarily obvious. But basically, he mortgaged his later part of the game for his early game. He was in a bunch of debt, a whole bunch of debt that he actually found with debt. Yeah, he founded with 14,000 of debt, which I mean, obviously was a mistake when you found elite with any debt at all, because it really should only be a last resort. But in any case, he got into that bunch of debt. He had, of course, not very many claims. He basically didn't use the black market other than goons. So that was, again, something he didn't have to spend money on. So he chose to get the faster upgrades instead. And even then, he was only able to keep up with Fredward. He wasn't really able to pull ahead at any point or really get any sort of an advantage.
Right. Let's take a look at the map. So what we had scientists In Scavengers, was that the other one?
No, we didn't have Scavengers. We had Scientist, Robot, Expansive, and Elite.
Okay, so let's try and find a better founding spot for Zorbaz other than this.
I think where he is as an Expansive would have been okay. Would have been okay. Not amazing. I mean, Expansive in a 1v1 is not great either, but you do have the iron there. You've got some amount of aluminum. You've got the 2 adjacent lows, which, you know, at a stretch is going to be good enough for you. You don't have the high or even the medium close by, but the only medium on the map was the one that Fredward took. So I think going 2 lows is really the thing to do there.
Expansive is a bet that you can make it to the late game, and with Fredward's robot found in robot play, I think an Expansive would have been able to make it to the late game. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the only reason that the only reason that Expansive I think was viable here was because of the electronics price. The electronics price started 200, and of course, if you're a robot, that's just a huge amount extra money you need to be making from your other stuff. Before you can upgrade, because you can't make electronics in the early game, and the barriers to entry are too high. So you need to make money with the other stuff to buy the electronics, and it's just a big hurdle every time you upgrade to have to do that.